Hey guys, welcome to the channel, and I just came across this. This is Trump's Ukraine peace plan explained TLDR News EU. Okay, let's go check this thing out.
This video was brought to you by Ground News. Earlier this
Alright.
week, Donald Trump was declared winner of the US presidential election. Trump has repeatedly vowed that one of his first tasks as president will be to end the war in Ukraine, insisting that the war would have never started had he won in 2020, and promising that he would end the war
Let's get things right. It was not in 2020 that the war started. Ukraine was invaded in 2018. No one gave a damn. I talked about that in the channel. No one cared when the first little green men crossed the border, right? And the world played along as if nothing. The world did not care when Ukraine was invaded, so much so that Russia was allowed to have the FIFA World Cup in Russia that same year. As Ukraine was being invaded, we were playing fucking football in Russia and pretending it was not happening. So no, it was not in 2020, it was actually 2018.
24 hours. So in this video, we're going to explain why Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine, his plan to do so, and how he would manage to coax Zelensky and Putin to the table.
Okay.
Before we get into his peace plan, let's quickly explain why Trump is so keen to end the war. Now, this is in part because Trump is a self-declared isolationist, and ending the war, or winding down support for Ukraine,
Okay, let's
plays
make
well
the
to his base
TLDR a little bit less
to serve
TLDR.
resources for a potential conflict with China. This is something that former Trump advisor Elbridge Colby often talks about. As a result of sending military aid to support both Israel and Ukraine, America's ammunition and weapons stockpiles are running alarmingly low. And the Rand
The crazy thing is, why the hell do you need to send more ammo to Israel? What is it that you need to bomb? Like, rubble needs to be shot again? It is fucking crazy that a single dollar is going into Israel. I get it that if you're in Ukraine, you're being invaded by fucking Russians, you need help, you need guns, you need ammo, you need a lot of... But Israel needs help doing what? Burning plastic tarp camps from refugees? It is insane. I mean, people don't know this? Is this some kind of weird mystery that no one has? It is all over. You can find the videos of all of this through Twitter. You know, we talk about Trump, Elon Musk. Look into fucking Twitter. And yes, you have to kind of go through some of the bullshit over there, but it is out there if you look at. I don't get it. I don't get why Israel needs to bomb Gaza even more when it's already all rubble.
Recently estimated that in the event of a war over Taiwan, the US could exhaust its ammunition stockpiles within just 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, this is old
Not only
news,
will
we know
replenishing Washington's ammunition inventory take...
And by the way, I've been surprised. Lately, there's a lot of ammo that's not working all that well. Definitely quality control has taken a... Let me know in the comments for you guys that shoot very often. Let me know if you've seen a drop in the quality of ammunition, in how many misfires you're getting, how many ammo is failing you lately, because I've been surprised by that, honestly.
Years, but the supply chain has become overly dependent on China, Korea, which is about 4 kilometers wide and heavily fortified. This implies Ukraine giving up kilometers wide and heavily fortified.
This is what I was just saying. Just in the video before, I was saying something like what you have between North and South Korea.
Neutrality. According to Vance, the first bit, a freeze along the current front lines, would pave the way for the creation of a demilitarized zone, presumably akin to the one between North and South Korea, which is about 4 kilometers wide and heavily fortified. This implies Ukraine giving up about a fifth of its land, which is currently controlled by Russia. This includes Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014.
Yeah, and this may be a no deal for a lot of Ukrainians. They are kind of set... If I was this dude, I would maybe concede this. This was always considered to be somewhat of a, well, yeah, they kind of are. They would still have their fleet here, right? So this is as far as giving up all of this, it only means that they will continue to move forward, right? And keep in mind, they initially went for all of it. When Tulsi Gabbard, years ago, was saying that Ukraine would fall within 2 weeks, people apparently have, I don't know, what the fuck is it? No memory whatsoever. They would take all of it. Tulsi Gabbard, with her military expertise, said that Russia would take all of Ukraine within a couple weeks. A couple weeks. Years ago, she said that. In fact, they were pushed back into the border of the first invasion in 2018 to 20. They expanded a little bit more since 2018, maybe 2020. Don't remember exactly what year it is that they ended up here. But the rest was very much stopped and pushed back. It was actually being extremely successful, maybe a little bit too successful for the liking of some, and maybe that's why it stopped. And it's simple. This is like a faucet. You give them the weapons, they fight, they push them back. You don't give them the weapons, or you give them weapons that are limited in their software, so as to be less efficient. Yeah, shit like this ends up happening. So it's no accident. But what's been very interesting is how exposed Russia has been. This is damn Russia. We thought Russia could invade and conquer US. We thought Russia was a lot more than it obviously actually is, given that Ukraine, with a little bit of help, it's nowhere near as much as you think it is, manages to pull them back. The European Union is helping them a little bit. US is helping a little bit. Oh, but we're sending up. It is really, compared to what's been given to Israel, of all things, it is nothing. But with that amount, keep in mind, they don't have any air force. They have nothing in terms of what modern militaries around the world could offer. It is basically, we give a little bit of guns, we give a little bit of ammo, some shells, and little else, and they still manage to hold them back in spite of what they're facing. If you wanted to stop this war and beat these guys, you could do it in a couple weeks. No shit. It is super obvious that's the case. But you don't have that. You don't have an organized campaign to have strikes and reduce their capabilities all over this area. There's no incentive to do that. There's no interest in doing that.
About 80% of the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, and about 70% of the southern Zaporizhia and Kherson oblasts. This actually brings us to the second point of Trump's possible peace plan, as outlined by Vance: Ukraine's neutrality. In other words, Trump, Vance, and Trump ally Elon Musk, who suggested something similar in late 2022, think that Ukraine shouldn't join. And Trump ally Elon, who suggested something similar in late 20...
Okay, Ukraine-Russia peace deal from Elon Musk. Redo elections of an annexed region under UN supervision. Russia leaves if that is... Well, you can't have them with Russia taking control, right? And this is Elon Musk being Elon Musk, which is often super fucking greedy and capable of anything, and obviously he's that, and he's very bright on other things, and he's super, like, he dreams big, right? We will ask people if they want to be Russians, and if they don't want to be Russians, well, it's all of the people that actually were in favor of Ukraine have left this part, have left this region. They were evacuated as Russians invaded, and then they brought in Russians. How the hell are you going to have any kind of fair election in terms of who they want to be part of, right? And that's also not how it works. You just cannot ask a bunch of Russians living there if they want to annex Ukraine to Russia. It is Ukraine. Deal with it. If you don't like it, go back to Russia. That's the only thing. So this, huge no-go. Crimea, formerly part of Russia. What I just said, yeah, give that up, right? It was not supposed to be part of Russia. It was supposed to be just a military base that Ukraine allowed Russia to have there. And again, the military base is quite small. Crimea is quite huge. So you would be giving a huge chunk of land. It would still be a massive victory for Russia if they just managed to keep Crimea. But again, going back to Crimea, when we just pretended it was not a big deal when they took over by force, what is it they did? They took more. And when no one did a damn thing about that more they took, meaning all of the red part we were just seeing there before, they try to go straight for the capital of the country. Russians are not to be trusted when it comes to land grabbing. They have no limit unless you impose that by force. And that's something that I believe Trump and Elon Musk will both find out the hard way at the expense of a lot of suffering from Ukrainians. Ukraine remains neutral. Water supply to Crimea, yeah. So that's it. And you get a lot of no's because a lot of Ukrainians probably got in and said, fuck no, we're not giving up a fifth of our country to these assholes.
2022. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, Trump won't necessarily rule out Ukraine's accession to NATO entirely, but would suggest delaying it by at least 20 years. Now, this peace plan will likely include some kind of enforcement mechanisms, like deploying peacekeeping troops on the ground. However, Trump has long argued that Europe doesn't pull its weight in defense spending, which means that Europe would most likely have to pick up the bill or use its troops. So that's the plan, but to end
and Europe could,
which means that Europe
doesn't want to help either. Europe is very much in the same. Europe is in the same as U.S. Europe and U.S. are exactly the same. Oh, we're not. No, exactly the same. When it comes to the globalist elite agenda, they're very much on the same pocket, and they work in tandem. They both do the same things together. Just look at what's happened in Middle East, with Israel and Gaza and Lebanon, all of that crap. It's been exactly the same. The same thing they've been doing. They've been doing the exact same thing. They've been saying the exact same thing. They've been allowing the exact same things to happen and aiding in this insanity without any difference. Very much aligned in that front. And the same thing is happening with Ukraine. You don't need the United States. You know all of those people that say, oh, but Europe could easily beat the shit out of Russia. If they wanted to, Europe alone, without any help from US, could beat the living crap out of Russia, blow the living shit out of it with the amount of planes that they have already. They could just do that. It is just that there is, the elite the globalist financial leaders don't want this to happen. The true leaders of the world don't want this to happen, and they want to let this keep cooking for a while more.
Russia to agree to it, given that neither side is currently keen on negotiating. 2. Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. Russian forces currently don't control all of Donetsk, Kherson, or Zaporizhia, so a freeze along the current front lines would fall short of Putin's stated aims, especially if there's a sizable buffer zone. And the Kremlin even recently dismissed Trump's claim of a quick peace deal as, quote, the realm of fantasy. If Putin does refuse Trump's peace plan, it'll be interesting how Trump responds. Right. While many Europeans and Ukrainian leaders worry that he'll just make more concessions to Putin, it's worth noting that in his first term, despite some occasionally friendly rhetoric, Trump wasn't afraid to put Putin in his place, and was actually the first US president to authorize sending lethal military aid to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Trump also imposed sanctions against Russian firms building the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline in Germany, ordered airstrikes on the Russian mercenary groups in Syria, and withdrew from multiple nuclear treaties. Trump also said in an interview with Fox News last year that he'd actually step up support for Ukraine in order to force Russia to acquiesce, saying, quote, I'd tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot, more than they ever got. All in all, neither Ukraine or Russia would be immediately keen on the deal, and it's an open question as to whether Trump would be able to leverage them into it.
It's going to be complicated. It's going to be complicated because, and this is supernatural in terms of, well, it's not my country, so yeah, I give half away of it, right? But for Ukrainians, and the thing is, Ukrainians have become a lot more westernized than people realize. Ukrainians were very much into the idea of becoming part of the global Western world, joining European Union. That was their dream. They want to be like any other European Union country. They want to have the same things. They want to have the passport, the free movement, which is already kind of dead. But that was one of the things that they really aspired to. That was a big difference from, well, in many ways, some of the more rational, some of the more evolved Russians, maybe from the capital and so on. They also liked the idea of being very much like Europe in their own way, right? It is more of the backwater redneck kind of Russian. They want let's go back to Soviet times. The more modern Russian guy probably left Russia when things started getting worse, and they saw themselves as potentially ending up in the front fighting against Ukraine. They were not at all into that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes on. But anyway, this is the state in which it is right now, and it's just about waiting and seeing. That's an interesting change of color there. See you later, guys. Take care.